What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you stopping by. Actually, making this video for a couple of people. I've been asked several times since I posted in a couple of Discords how I use my Edgeful reports on the initial balance uh, to trade the initial balance. So I'm going to go through the process of looking at the reports and the information I glean from them, and then how we put that to use on the charts. Um, and this can be done on any of the assets. I might run through more than one, but I'm a YM trader. But like I said, you can look at the charts after you see my process and my trade plan that I've created for the IB. And you could look back through whatever asset you trade and see if it works for you. Now, obviously, some of the stats are going to be different if you're looking at, like metals, gold, silver, platinum, or if you're looking at oil, than it will be if you're looking at the indices, okay? But the indices kind of all work together. So whether you're trading YM, NQ, or ES, this trade plan works pretty much on any one of those. Of course, stop loss and take profits and everything will be a little bit different for each asset because of the range of movement. So this isn't financial advice. This is for educational purposes only. I'm just showing you what I do in my trading. I do not recommend anyone just blindly follow it. Look at the stats, look at the charts, go back through as many days as you want and look at the initial balance and look at the levels I'm going to show you and see if it's something you want to work for you. Tweak the plan a little bit to make it fit you. Make a completely different plan on how to use the IB. So, I've had a couple of people ask me, how do you, use the IB report from Edgeful? And this is the answer to that instead of just typing out several big paragraphs on going through it. So let's head on over to a web browser and we'll go on into Edgeful, okay? Edgeful is a fantastic platform that gives you all the stats you need to have an edge in the markets. Okay. And so I'm just going to move over here to YM, MYM, or YM, either one you want to do. It's going to pretty much be the same. And over here, I'm going to choose the initial balance. Well, I'm going to choose the initial balance breakout. Okay. Now this is the standard report, and this is going to tell me a really key piece of information. Okay. And I'm looking over the last 6 months here. And what I can see is that when we break out of the initial balance, which is from 9:30 to 10:30, right? So it's the 60-minute initial balance. Okay. And this is for the New York session only. This does not include any other session's information. It only includes information from the New York session from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Okay. So 74.62% of the time, we only have a single break, which means if we break the high of the initial balance, 74% of the time, it does not go back and break the low of the initial balance. Okay. So this doesn't mean just buy every breakout. There's other things we need to look at, but we do have the highest probability once we break the high first, we will not go break the low. If we break the low first, we should not go back and break the high. Okay. This is a high probability statistic. Anything that's 65% or more is good enough for me to look at to build a trade plan off of. And 74 is fantastic. This has dropped a couple of points because I do believe we had a double break day a couple of days ago. And you can do this on any time frame. So let's just look at the most current. Okay. Over the last month, 90% of the time, we have a single break day. Okay. Only 4% of the time, do we go down and break both sides of the IB? Okay. And like I said, I think a couple of days ago we had one, and that's why this is that way. So the most recent time frame, the last 1 month, which is the last 20 trading days, we've got extremely high probabilities of knowing which way the market should be moving, right? So that's what we're going to work on trading. Now I'm going to stay on the 1 month because I want to see the most recent data here. And the 1 month report, I believe, is where you will see the market start to shift a little bit if these numbers start changing. Okay. Maybe you have a couple losses. You go back, you look at the numbers, and you see the numbers are dropping. Well, things might be changing, so you might need to adjust your strategy a little bit. So here we can choose some sub-reports, and this is what we're going to go into next. And we're just going to go ahead and look by weekday. And what this will do is tell me, how many days or what days of the week does this typically happen the most? Well, over the last month, 100% of the time, we've had single break days, 4 out of 4 days. Now, I don't know why that's only 4 days, since we are almost to Christmas. Oh, that's just Mondays. Sorry, we've only had 4 Mondays in the month. It's late, folks. I'm making this right before going to bed. And of course, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday. That's when we had our double break day in the last month. Okay, it was on a Thursday. And then we had a no break 1 day out of the month where it didn't break the IB high or the low. It just stayed inside the range. Okay. So, but if you're looking at a longer time frame, you're going to have more than 4 days there on each weekday, and you'll see the stats. So maybe Friday isn't a good day to trade this setup, and we can just trade it Monday through Thursday. Okay. So that's what the weekday report does. And buy size is somewhat important. Sometimes you have a really small IB, and sometimes you have a larger one. Okay. So we're looking at all the sizes here, and I'm just looking at the statistics. Okay. Really, everything over the last month, no matter what size the IB is, we've kind of done the same thing. Let's just take a look at the 6 month, because I know the stats will change on this if we put in more time there. So let's just go back to the smallest. Well, a very small IB, you can expect when it breaks, it's going to run a little bit. So it stays on that side. Now, if we move to this, now we have a little bit more chance of a double break, and we're below our 60%. So I might have to be a little weary if we're at 0.2 to 0.39% of the initial balance, and that's the size of the initial balance. And you can measure this very easily, but I'll make a note of that on a piece of paper. And let's just go ahead and make a note, right? So we're looking at 0.2 to 0.39. 0.2 to 0.39. Caution. Okay. If we go to 0.4 to 0.59, we're fine on our percentages. Fine on our percentages. Greater than 0.9, we're fine. And, that's custom. So anything greater than 0.9%, we're still good. Okay. So the only one we need to worry about is this one right here. All right. We tend to have a few more double breaks on this size of a day. So we'll measure and make sure. Okay. So the next one I want to go is by performance. And what this is going to tell me is that once we break the IB, how far does it usually travel? Price travel. Okay. And this is the maximum, right? Maximum performance. And I don't want to play the maximum because that just, we're not always going to go to the max. I want to look at averages. So this shows us our average distance that we will travel. And this is 0.21 to 0.21 on brakes to the upside and 0.31 on the brakes to the downside. Okay. So there's something we can set there in the indicator that Edgeful provides for the initial balance specifically to work on. Okay. And I'll show you that once we get to the charts. We'll be there shortly. Don't worry. This is going to be a little bit of a long video because you don't just make a trade plan in 5 minutes. Okay. Now the other one, now again, go through all of these sub reports and mentally think, how would that work in your trade plan? Okay. But what I'm going to show you, because what I prefer to use the most, okay, I do use these average numbers, and I use the buy retracement report as well. What this is going to do is this is going to show me once we break the IB, okay, and I choose by wick, not by close. So any break of the IB, I'm looking at, do we pull back? Okay. So 44% of the time, we're going to pull back to the 25% level. I'll show you this again on the indicator. All right. And 23% of the time, we'll pull back to the 50%. So 1 out of 4 will go back to the 50%. Okay. But a good percentage, we're going to pull back. And this is on breakout days to the upside. Now, if we break to the downside, there's a 66% chance we go back to the 25 and almost a 50% chance that we go to 50%. Okay. So these are numbers you need to be paying attention to, either to the upside or the downside. So I have a different trade plan now based on which side of the IB we break. All right. So that's pretty much what I use. I do pay attention to the other sub-reports, but they're not a major component of my trade plan particularly. They may be a part of yours based on the way you like to trade it. So let's just head over the charts and take a look, okay? So here I have my charts, and I use a couple of different things on my charts, okay? I use a 1-hour chart and a 1-minute chart. Okay. I use the 1 hour for a basic directional bias. Right now we're in a downtrend. Okay. But I think that may be changing, but I'm not going to go through that right now. And as far as the Edgeful indicators, I have a whole bunch of them listed up here because I have a couple of different trade strategies that I like to trade during the day at certain times for certain things. And I turn these indicators on and off as needed. Okay. But if you're a member of Edgeful, you also have access to the indicators. By the way, if you're not a member of Edgeful and you're watching this video, there's a link down below. I would appreciate it if you click on that link if you want to check them out. It is my affiliate link, and I will get a small commission if you decide to purchase with them. Thank you very much. But I have this indicator, which is Key Levels by Spaceman BTC, or Spaceman BTC Key Level Indicator. And what this gives me is higher time frame levels. Previous week, high, low, midline, the monthly open, the quarterly open, bigger time frame stuff. Okay, I do have previous day levels on there. That's about as small as I go. I don't list the session, Asia session, London session, high lows, stuff like that. 4-hour candles, high lows. I don't care. But I do want to know, quarterlies, monthlies, weeklies, and daily levels, because those are very important. Okay. Then I also have, I have volume bubbles. I'm not going to go through that because that is just kind of more confluence. It doesn't have anything to do with the initial balance. Okay. So I'm just going to turn that off because you won't see them here anyway. I've gone back a few days and I've just picked a good example. What I want everyone to do, if you're interested in looking at this, is take this information and go back. You can set this indicator, the initial balance breakout. You can go in and set this indicator and set however many number of days back you want to look. And if you go on the 15-minute chart, you can go back quite a ways. 30-minute chart, you can go back quite a ways. But you do kind of need to see this on a smaller time frame, okay? So you may not be able to go back that far depending on your platform, okay? So while we're in the initial balance breakout indicator, let's take a look at a couple of the things that we're going to be looking at. One, I use by retracement. Once we break, do we retrace? And we remember the numbers on that, right? If we break to the upside, we have a good probability of coming back to the 25%, not so much to the 50%. But if we break to the downside, we have a much better chance of coming all the way back to 50% of the initial balance before continuing to the downside. So we have these levels turned on, and this is the 25, the 50, and the 75% levels, okay? Make sure your IB time is 9:30 to 10:30, okay? And then session range from 9:30 to 4 o'clock, all right? So here are the numbers that we had, and these numbers are off just slightly because those numbers change. You have to go back in and check your reports, make sure these numbers are correct, okay? So I think these numbers were a little bit higher on this one and a little bit lower on this one. I think it was more like 21 and 30 something. I didn't write them down, so I'm not going to worry about it. But we'll just leave this here for now. I need to change my numbers for next week. All right. And I also have the deviation. So these levels here are deviation lines. And I have the 0.5 and the 1 for negative for the downside and positive for the upside. That's all I have. Okay. So that's pretty much all I change in the initial balance breakout indicator. I have market sessions, which shows me the New York session, the blue box, and you can see, I have each session is marked by the blue box. All right. Now, the opening, let's turn that off. EMAs, I use a 9 EMA on the 1 minute chart because for me, that's the ultimate trending line indicator. Okay. And the opening stats indicator. This is going to show me the previous session's high and the previous session's low. Okay. And that's going to come, no, that's the current session. Never mind. I can see that over here. Okay. So if I want to look back at the previous day and say, okay, well, where's our low or high? I can see where that's at. And of course, my Spaceman BTC or my Spaceman key levels will give me the previous day low and a previous day high. So we can actually turn that off if we want to. And hide that. All right. So, all right. So let's get into the IB. Well, I can show you the levels. The yellow lines are the 25% levels. This green line is the IB high, and this green line is the IB low. Okay. Now, this green box you see right here in between the green and the red, this is the IB low. It shows us our first hour candle, and you'll see the box is green. Now, typically, we're looking for a continuation to the upside when the first hour is green, but it doesn't always happen that way, and today it did not, right? So after the IB is set, so the green box stops at 10:30, okay? And that tells you the first hour. So after the first hour is completed, when we completed it right around here, we start dropping down. And we go and we break the IB low here, okay? So now remember our retracement levels, right? We have a very good chance of getting back to the 50% when we break the low side, but we have a very high chance of getting to the 25%. So what I'm going to do at this point is once we break the IB low, I'm going to place a limit order just below the 25% line. Okay, number one, look at our IB distance. Okay, and it is 0.47. All right, so that is more than 0.2 to 0.39. That cautionary IB range that we have to be careful of. Well, we're above that. We're at 0.47. Okay, so 0.2 to 0.39 is the range where we would want to be very cautious at. And you can see that right here when we measure the IB. We don't have to worry about that here, so we can expect just a single break. Okay, so when we come down and we break the IB low, I'm going to be setting a short limit order just below the 25%. And I trade with a 50-point stop and a 100-point profit target. Now, here is the difference. We also have our performance metrics, right? The average extension once we break a sign, okay? So these purple lines are our average extension lines. So I only need 100 points for my target profit, but I will pull my target profit down here. Okay, now I'm about to show you, and you see I already pulled one over here. So I'm going to just remove this one, but I'm going to show you how I manage my trades from this point. Okay, so we break the IB low, we pull back to the 25. Now, we do have a good chance of going back to the 50, and you can see my stop doesn't cover the 50% mark. So if I were to get stop out on this trade right here, I would immediately enter another short with a market order because we're right at the 50% line, and I would give it another 50 points, okay? And I would trade from there, all right? Most of the time, my stop at the 25 will not cover the 50%. But my risk management will allow me to take more than one trade per day, right? Because I'm only risking $125 per trade, right? So I can take up to 2 to 3 trades a day before I reach my personal daily loss limit, okay? So we break, we get tagged into the trade here, and we start coming down. Well, this first push back up to the 9, our up candles here, as soon as price comes down and breaks below that body, not the wick, but the body of those 2 white candles, I'm adding to the trade there, okay? So now I'm in double the contracts, and I will also pull my stop down to that high on the push up to the 9 EMA, okay? So when that happens, my stop is going, or my average entry price is going to be pulled down to about right here. So if I pull that down to about right there, which is around where it's going to be, this isn't exact science, and I pull my stop down, okay, now my stop is more than half the risk from where it was, 50 points to 18 points. Okay, so now if I were to, hold on, I got to get logged in. You know, let's just log into paper trading here. Okay. And now if I create a limit order and I enter my trade with 5 micros, but at this point I'm now in 10 micros, okay, a full mini. And you can see oh, this is YM, not MYM, okay? So let's just say we're in one mini, okay? You can now see that my risk is only $90. So now I've not only been able to double the profits I make because I'm in a full micro instead of just 5, or a full mini instead of just 5 micros, and I've reduced my risk from $125 to $90. Okay. And with my target profit down to the average excursion, let me pull that up. Now I'm looking at making $1,100 on the trade. Now, I can obviously close this trade anytime I want for whatever profit I want, right? But here, once we pull up, we actually break let me pull this up, lock this up, and move this out of the way. Okay. So we got in the trade here, we added here, our average price came down and our stop came down, and then we break through the initial balance low again. Okay. Now, as we're coming down, I'm looking for these pullbacks to the 9 and then looking for price to go below the body of this candle here. When that happens, I'm going to pull my stop down to here. Okay. Now, I like to see 2 candles, which is why I wouldn't do it here. Okay. I like to see 2 candles push up and then push back down, and we break that low. Okay. So when it happens here and we pull up to the 9, even though we come back below this, I really don't like that because that wasn't a strong enough push back up for me. I want to see the up candle get up to the 9 and then the down candles come down. Don't ask me why I do that. It's just the way I do it. So my stop remains up here for a while. Remember, we're targeting this purple line. So we come down here, we break above the 9, but that's okay. Why is that okay? Well, we just came all the way from up here, all the way from initial balance high and just fell all the way down. And that in itself is a 400-point move, okay? So after the market moves that far, you're going to expect some consolidation, okay? And we do. We start consolidating here a little bit. Now, you could decide to take this trade off anytime you want because this is $1,100. If you're up here, you're in plenty of profit. If you're trading a 50K with a consistency rule, you're going to be out of the trade already before you even get down here because you can only make so much per day without blowing your consistency rule. Okay. But you can see that we do actually end up going down to the average excursion. Okay. So that's basically how I trade and manage the trade. So my entry is a pullback to the 25%, okay, and looking for the push down. Now, there is a caveat to this. This was closed by a wick. There's one way that I will enter the trade before we have a pullback, okay? And I'll show that, see if I can find an example of that here to show you over the next few days. Okay. Here is one. Okay. So this would be a day that I end up taking 2 trades and actually probably not. we'll see. So we're making fair value gaps all the way down through here. If you don't know what a fair value gap is, YouTube it, find a video on what fair value gaps are, and you'll understand. But it's basically a space between the first candle and the third candle where the wicks don't touch. So we fair value gap through the bottom of the initial balance. This is the time where I don't wait for the pullback because fair value gaps show strength. And we are making fair value gap after fair value gap after fair value gap. We're in a deep descent, and most of the time, these are going to last for a little while. So I would immediately enter the trade on the close of this third bar of the fair value gap, okay? And again, I'm going to use my 100-point target. And I would not be taking 2 trades on this day because I would end up making my profit right there, okay? Now, do I get an ad on this trade? Probably not. And I'm really not looking to because the market is moving so fast. It's just not pulling back to the 9, okay? And I don't get an ad here, but if I'm in 5 micros, okay, and I know I'm on YM, not MYM, so I'm going to put on 1 mini, and what the hell was that? Market. What the hell did I touch? Okay, there we go. So I would be risking okay. All right. So I would be risking $125 to make 250. Okay. And depending on the account size I'm trading, that's perfectly fine. If I make 250 a day, then I'm at $1,000 a month or $1,000 a week. Okay. So that's the caveat. Depending on how we move through the initial balance low, right? So again, we pull back to the 25%. After this trade, we do get our pullback. I could enter again at the 25%, use my YM short, okay, and I wouldn't get stopped out, and I also wouldn't hit full target. But there are also times, now I've already made $250 on the day, okay? I'm willing to risk half of that on that trade, and it almost comes to stop out, and then it gets below, and we start heading back for initial balance low. When we get close to the initial balance, I'm pulling my stop down to break even, because now I'm not going to lose any of my $250, but I'm looking to make another 250. But this time, since I've already made 250, I only need to make 125. Okay. So now I only need to make 125. All right. And so this can actually be pulled up to 250 because I'm in my minis here. Okay. Close enough. So I only need to get to here to make another $125. So I made 250, make another 125. That puts me at 375 for the day. More than enough for a 50K account to stay within my consistency rule. Okay. So this is a much shorter trade. I don't have to make full profit on this trade. All right. Again, just another way I would look at, if I don't get an ad on the first trade and I only make $250 on this trade, if we get that pullback, I'm willing to risk half of my profits to take that trade, because I know that we do get this pullback, and then I'm looking for a continuation again. Even though it's a green candle day, this is a big sell-off. Now, this actually goes back, again, our statistics say that if we break to the downside, almost half the time we pull back to the 50%. So I wouldn't even have to take this trade. But if we get here, knowing that we have a very low probability of going all the way back up to initial balance high, I could definitely take that trade here from the 50% with my YM stop loss. Okay. And we only need a 1-to-1 on this trade to make another 125, and very quickly make that. Okay. So these are how I use the levels for my entries. My stop loss is always 50 points, risking $125. And then I just manage my trade for whatever profits I want to make that day. on the 50K accounts. That's not, that's $250 to $400. That's all I want to make in a day on a 50K account to stay within my consistency rules. Okay. And whether that's on the first trade or if I decide to take a second trades. Now, this trade happens at 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm probably not trading that because I like to be done before lunch. This trade happens at 12:43, so I'm probably not in it either. I made my $250 here, and come lunchtime, and we made that, right at lunchtime. All right. But I'm perfectly okay with that. All right. And I'm done for the day and I move on. So that is everything. I hope that answers everyone's questions on how I use the IB. If you have any other questions, those that have asked for this in the Discord, you can ping me in Discord, and I'll answer any questions you have on this. If this didn't explain everything, or if you're just watching this video and you have any questions, leave a comment below, and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. Appreciate it. I tried to keep this somewhat short, but we're at almost 40 minutes. So if you made it to the end, congratulations. You have a higher, yeah, it's late. I just completely lost the word. Attention span. You have a higher attention span than most people. So I'm going to bed now, and until Monday, stay blessed.